Yeah, I think I'm the Stu Gotts of goalie coaches, completely unprofessional broadcaster. Today we want to talk about the traits of successful goaltenders. And the first one we want to talk about is daily work ethic. So Spronse, when we talk about daily work ethic, what do you think that means? How does that apply to a goaltender when you're talking about the daily part?
The way I see it is getting some sort of work in that's going to make you a better goalie. It doesn't necessarily have to mean you have to get on the ice every single day. It could be doing some off-ice training. It could be doing some on-ice training. It could be doing some video analysis. It could be reading a book that might help you with your mental game. There's lots of things that you could be doing, but it's doing something every day and making sure that you're getting better every day.
I think one thing that goes with that too is that there's times when kids will work hard at practice. And I think what that's actually also referring to is that every time you're on the ice, it has to be full blast. So your work ethic can't vacillate up and down. It has to be every single time you're on the ice, your work ethic is there. So daily work ethic for me is doing something every day, but also keeping the level up at a high level. Every single time you're doing it and you're delivering your work ethic, it's got to be up there every day. There's no turn it on, turn it off. It's always turned on.
Something that you've talked about at the camp for years too is you never know who's watching you. You never know who could be in the rink that day. You never know who could be watching you. You never know. It could be somebody that's actually scouting for their team, or it could be somebody that knows somebody that could get put in a good word for you. And if it's the day that you're off, that they're there and they're looking at you, they're not going to recommend you to whoever they're talking to.
Another thing we have to have is passion and a love for practicing. And I think maybe one of my weaknesses was I actually loved practicing more than I did playing the games. And I don't know if every goalie has that same type of mindset. I think in practice, you have to love it. You have to want to go to it. And I've had some parents say, oh, my kid's a gamer. Doesn't like to practice, doesn't perform well in practice, but in the games, he's there. So when you talk about the gamer mentality versus delivering in practice, loving practice and passion, how do you think that impacts a goalie and their chances to move up?
It makes a huge impact, obviously. If the practice is the time when you have to work on your weaknesses in your game. So if you have weaknesses in your game and you're not working on those as hard as you can every practice to make those better and catch them up to the strengths in your game, then you're not going to be improving as much as you'd like. Yes, everybody likes to play games. They are more competitive. They're more fun. It's everybody's involved, and it's just you're not getting in those situations where you're getting a ton of shots and not necessarily the best drills. It is the most realistic thing, a game situation. Practice, though, is where you actually get time to pick things apart and work on the things that you need to work on. So practice is extremely important. And yeah, I have tons of goalies that are the same way, that they're gamers, that they work hard for games. And a lot of that's preparation. Are they preparing for the same as they are for practice as they are for a game? And the answer is most of the time not, when really they should be.
Right. And I think what you find a lot of times, if you got a starting goalie that plays a lot, they can keep sharp by playing a lot of games. But if they don't have the work ethic and practice and they're not the starter, then you run into a fatal flaw. Now, I'm not going to throw one of my NHL goalies under the bus who used to play for Toronto Maple Leafs, who he got from Boston. But his work ethic and practice wasn't always there. Would never go down in butterflies and just try to survive practice. Thrive in practice. Don't try to survive practice. Now I want to talk about a hat trick of character, and we're talking about leadership, we're talking about character, and we're talking about your attitude. And that kind of a hat trick is important because I've seen a lot of goalies ultimately talented, but attitude, character, leadership isn't necessarily there. And I think the best example I see with that is sometimes goalies will say, well, I already have my own goalie coach, I don't need to listen to you, or the coach isn't delivering a practice or treating them right. And so their attitude suffers, and it's a cancer on the team. So I've seen a lot of kids with amazing talent, amazing upside. With one of those three things, the attitude, the character, and the leadership, is their Achilles heel.
Yeah, for sure. And leadership is a huge thing too as a goalie. Some people think that they only have one job, it's to stop the puck. But as a goalie, you are a person that's most involved in the game. You are on the ice for the entire game, and you can lead by example, by like we talked about, putting in effort in practice, by making sure that you're calm and cool and collected and not losing your mind in a game when something goes wrong. And if they see that poise and that leadership from you, it's going to help and radiate out to the rest of the team to make them feel better and play better as well.
I think you see it with the elite athletes. When you get to play major, junior, college, you are going to be interviewed by the press. And leadership in that case also takes a hold, because you could easily throw your teammates under the bus because they took stupid penalties all game and you blew a lead, and you could be frustrated. And I think the key there is leadership, if you're an elite athlete, can also take place when you're being interviewed with the media, and how you downplay what actually happens. You're not throwing teammates under the bus. So for me, a good thing that happens in interviews with either media or with scouts that sit you down for an interview is make sure you take ownership and lead the team and put the weight of the performance on you, not blaming it on outside factors.
And when we're talking about character as well, that relates to all aspects of your game, of how you treat the media, how you treat the coaches, how you treat the Zamboni driver, everybody around the rink, and thanking your coaches when they're on the ice for providing their time and helping you out. And a good character person is going to be somebody that everybody on the team likes. You're not that guy that's sulking in the net when you let in a goal, or smashing your stick, or chirping other players on the team when they do something bad. Or it's just having a good character and being a good leader on the team is very beneficial.
Two terms that I like to talk about with that would be personality and confidence. And I trained a goalie way back in the day named Ronnie Vogel. Played in the OHL, played in the minors for years. Ronnie was always smiling. He was gregarious. I don't think I can ever recognize the kid, thinking back, of him not smiling. And teammates love that. So you don't need to be a quiet, sulky, sullen, moody guy where people don't know how you feel. Smile. Keep the mouth closed more often than not, and have confidence, project swagger. And that was Ronnie Vogel. And a side note with him is he saved his father's life, who he found unconscious at one point. And speaking about character, he provided CPR to his father for 45 minutes, mouth to mouth, and he saved his father's life. So he's a prime example of character and the type of personality that you want to have on a team. We often hear goaltenders, players for that matter, when they're interviewed, talk about how they have a love for the game. And, I think it's a crucial thing to love the sport. You don't want to be showing up to something you hate every day. But what do you think is a better way to describe the love for the game? Like, they throw that term out there all the time, that he just loves the game. Like, what does that actually mean, and how does it manifest itself?
I think you can tell some people that love the game with the amount of knowledge that they actually have about the game. So not just necessarily about their own stats, their own skills, their own things that they need to work on all the time, but how much they know about everything else that's going on in the game of hockey. Do they know everything that's going on, from the centerman to the wingers to the defensemen to the coaches to other teams in the league? The NHL, for example, could they tell you about what's going on every single night in the NHL of everybody? So those people that could tell you everything there is to know about the league that they're playing in and their own team and teams that they're going to be playing against, I think that's a real love for the game. Those situations where they're just sort of self-involved and worried about their own game and everything that they're doing right or wrong, that's not really the love for the game. It's if they can sort of summarize everything that's happening around them and be watching hockey even when they don't have to. I think that's a real love for the game.
And so we're talking about a love for the game, not love for your game. You have to love the entire game. And I think when I look back on my journey, I would feel physically ill if I couldn't go to practice. I would just be driving me insane that I would miss a game. So I had this actual emotional attachment where I had to go get it. It was almost like a drug. I needed the hockey or else I was going to have withdrawal symptoms. So you need to have that love and passion to push you through the parts of the journey where it's not going your way. It's a crucial element that you need to have, and that's the love of the game. One thing that I recognized early in my journey was I knew what I was good at, and I also knew there was a massive amount of things that I struggled with. And I think one key trait of a successful goalie is having an awareness of your strengths and not prioritizing your work on those because they're fun and you're good at it, but having a hunger, just a pathological push to find the things in your game that you're not good at and come up with a scope and a sequence and an attack to fix your weaknesses. So I see that quite often with goalies, especially younger ones. They want to do drills at privates that are fun, that they're good at, glove saves, whatever, but they don't want to do the hard work like recovery and transition. So how do you think that impacts your success chances as a goaltender?
Well, it obviously makes a huge difference. If you're not willing to work on the things that you're weak at, you're not going to be improving as much as the kids that are. There's always somebody out there that is trying to get better at the things that they're not good at. And something that I do with a lot of my goalies is I always tell them to come to every lesson with some weakness, something that they need to improve on that lesson. And it could be something that they're consistently trying to improve throughout the course of the year, or it could be something that just did bad over the last couple of games. Maybe they let in a couple goals over their glove side and they want to work on that top corner of the glove side. Maybe they're going down too early, or they don't know what situation they should be using the RVH in and which one they shouldn't be in. So having something to work on every time you step on the ice is a good way to improve those weaknesses.
And I think a way to make concrete steps in that direction would be create your own goaltending diary. List the things that currently you're doing great at. Maybe you move up in level and they're not a strength anymore, but your current strengths and your current weaknesses. Maybe we call it a suck list, things that you're not good at, and write them down. And when you have a written record of the things that you need to address and a plan to fix it, you can judge and reevaluate later to see if there's any improvement there. But you'd be smart if you could create a goaltending diary to document your strengths and, even more importantly, the things that you're weak at. So as we just touched on, your goaltending diary or your journal is an important thing for every goaltender to have. And it's what allowed me to write and create a lot of books and documents and videos about goaltenders, because during my journey, I was documenting everything. So your own goaltending diary and journal is crucial. And what would be some things that we would put in there besides outlining your strengths and outlining your weaknesses?
So other things that you want to include in there are you can keep records of games and maybe the score of the game. So you can calculate your goals against average, your save percentage over the span of a 5-game period, a 10-game period, a 20-game period. And you can look for trends and find out, okay, am I getting better? Is my save percentage getting better? Is my goals against average getting better? You can also include your rebound control average, which calculates how well you control rebounds throughout the course of a game. And if those things are getting better or worse, then that gives you an idea of what you should be working on in practice. Other things that you could include in there might be some mental tips, maybe how you were feeling one game, what made you feel better the next game when you played, what did you think about before the game, your pregame warm-ups. Preparation, yeah. So if we're keeping lists of everything that we've done before every game, and then we're keeping a track record of how we played in those games, we're going to see trends. And when we start seeing trends, that's going to help us develop our pregame routine better, our in-game routines better, and how to be the best goalie that we possibly be. If you're just flying by the seat of your pants and going, well, I think I did this 2 weeks ago, let's try and do that again, but it ends up being different than what you did before, you're not going to get consistent results.
So in that goaltending journal, elite goalies also do things like they track arenas, they track personnel. So for instance, if you're playing in the old Joe Louis arena, they had super bouncy boards. And you'll find different individual arena characteristics when you go and play in different leagues. Note-taking on those arenas, the lighting, how it all works is crucial, because when you go back into that environment again, you won't get caught by surprise by that wonky Zamboni door, for instance, or the net's off angle slightly, those type of things. And back to the preparation thing, detailing and really drilling down on your consistent preparation and documenting it, and then seeing the peak performance that comes out of the other side. If you can document it and connect the dots to how you're going to play later, that allows you to establish consistency in your game. So your goaltending diary or your goaltending journal is a crucial thing as a trait that successful goaltenders have. All right, this next one's crucial. We're in something that we've never even anticipated for 100 years, a pandemic. And it's causing us as coaches, it's causing goalies, it's causing parents, it's causing everybody to have to adjust and read and react on the fly. And a key trait of a successful goaltender is their ability to adjust. Maybe you're the starter one year, maybe you're the backup, maybe you love the coach, maybe he hates you, maybe you don't like the team. There's a million things that are going to vary as you move up through your journey. And you have to have the ability to adjust to circumstances that are outside your control. And this pandemic is a perfect example. And I fear people will use this pandemic as an excuse why their hockey didn't pan out. Whereas successful goalies will use this pandemic to actually gain traction on those that didn't have the ability to adjust.
I agree. It's all about what you're doing right now that's different for somebody else. Are you finding a pond somewhere that you can go skate on? Are you going out and doing dry land more than you would before during the season? Are you studying the NHL, which is back playing now? Are you watching games and studying goalies and finding out ways that you can use their skills to make yourself better? If you are finding ways to make yourself better, even though you can't get on the ice, you are adjusting and hopefully getting to that next step and getting where you need to be. If you're not doing that, you might be falling behind those goalies that are either a step ahead of you already or the ones that you're trying to catch, And you got to make sure that you are doing something to adjust to this and get better every day.
And the one final point about that I would say is there have been times where goalies, athletes have broken femurs and they've been off skates for a full year. And they've still had the ability to come back. The guy that comes to mind is Dino Ciccarelli, used to play for the London Knights, Hall of Famer. Great NHL career. After breaking his femur on the ice, they thought his career would be over. He missed a full year and found a way to keep succeeding. So keep your spirits up and find a way to adapt through this situation so that you can make it a strength and not a weakness in your game. All right, final trait in our little list today that I think goaltenders have to have visual and mental acuity. And that simply means great visual skills, great visual habits, but mentally being able to read the play, connect the dots, intelligently anticipate. You hear us talk about this quite frequently. We've got a lot of driving range goalies that look great in privates. They look great on Instagram, but in the game, quite frankly, they can't wipe their own. So at the end of the day, you have to be able to deliver your skills in the environment you need it. So what can we say to young goaltenders that will help them take the skill sets they've slaved away on to work to get better at in privates and practice, so it actually deploys itself in the game and becomes a useful, marketable thing for their progress up the ladder?
Well, it goes back to what we touched on earlier about practicing. We've got to make sure we're including these things in our practices and our private lessons. So before you want to employ it in a game, we should be using it in a more controlled situation, right? So everything that we've worked on off the ice and everything that we've been trying to add into our game to make ourselves a better goalie, we want to be adding that next into our on-ice sessions and seeing how it works for us on the ice. It is the things that we've worked on off the ice translating well to being on the ice, and is it something that I can use going forward to make myself a better goalie? If it's working on the ice, then you can add it into your game situations and use it in your game situations, and hopefully that's making you better as well. If you're finding it tough to translate it from your off-ice onto your on-ice, then we might have to make some tweaks to both the on-ice and the off-ice programs to make sure that they are coinciding well and working well together to make yourself better on the ice, and then we can add it into your game. But anything that we're working on off the ice, try and get into a practice as well before we start adding it into our game to seeing how well it transitions well from off-ice to on-ice.
I think I'd go back to use an example with the golfing. Now, if you go to a driving range, you're hitting golf balls off a perfectly flat, level surface, and half the time you tee it up just perfectly in the grass, and you're hitting these amazing shots. You get out on the course, you've got uneven lies, dirty balls, and you still have to find a way to deliver your performance. And I think what we find is in private lessons and Instagram and things, I see a lot of drills with stationary shooters from stationary spots on the ice executing drills. Now, once you have a skill mastered, you have to create the flow in the moving guy before he shoots it, because that's what you see in the game. It's very rare in a game where you'll ever see a guy standing in one spot shooting. You know, obviously, 5-on-3 power plays, you're going to have a guy in the back door planted. But for the most part, most attacks on a goaltender are flow-based. So if you're goalie coach, or even if you're working with us, if we're doing too many privates with stationary static shot locations, build flow into it. And that will help translate what's happening in your private environment to the game, so you can have the successful traits that all great goaltenders do.